What's going on, Workforce? Brian here, and at the latest Destiny event, Luke Smith stated that Destiny would be turning into an action MMO, and that he alluded that he had been kind of avoiding that term for so long. And at the time, I was thrilled that Destiny as a game is finally actually becoming what it's always been in my mind, that MMO, that action RPG, that every update, every expansion, they've kind of brought in more of that RPG-ness that was hidden below the surface, untouchable and invisible to the eye. I guess they were really always trying to be that shooter first, that looter shooter, but it's like, no, you guys are an MMORPG. What's going on over here? Now I keep thinking, why do they even avoid this term at all? And it's no secret that MMOs are not as much popular as a style of game as they once were in the world, obviously brought on by the success of World of Warcraft. As a game, WoW brought in non-gamers and gamers alike and brought them together in special ways and actually kept them subscribed. Some people would even say that, like, you might classify people who play WoW as gamers, but WoW is the only game they've actually ever played, the only video game they've ever played. And I've met these people, I've worked with these people, and it was really just quite fascinating to see it unfold all in real time. And from the success of World of Warcraft, we saw many companies invest in this concept of an MMO. And they really just tried to make WoW clones, try to capitalize on would people be subscribed to multiple of the same game. And we saw big license deals attached, like Lord of the Rings and Star Trek and even Star Wars come into play with their own form of an MMO. And to some would have some degrees of success, but ultimately all of them would end up going into this concept of a free-to-play model, which I think ultimately ended up actually hurting this what an MMO was supposed to be. Obviously, it's very difficult as a player, as somebody who works, to invest in these big games, these games that have a lot of depth and grind, and then also have multiple subscriptions. So obviously something had to give, and unfortunately I think the subscription model tends to be a thing of the past. It's really exciting to see that Final Fantasy XIV has had such success with the subscription model because it does end up keeping the community on an even playing field. Anyway, though, every year there was a new MMO, and they called it the WoW Killer. And I think this was actually ultimately unfortunate for those games because they were so similar, and then also calling it a WoW Killer when it wouldn't necessarily live up to the hype. It was always very frustrating because all these clones, they never really offered anything different. And that's ultimately what's really interesting about all of this, because Luke Smith was a huge WoW player. And as one of the lead designers of Destiny, his willingness to embrace the term, I am very excited about, and what it means for the future of Destiny as an IP, as a place that I like to invest in, as a place that I'm really happy to have returned to. But then it makes me wonder, why would Activision care if they called Destiny an MMO? It's no secret that we really don't see many MMOs anymore, with some exception that we're seeing a new Lord of the Rings being talked about. We're seeing, Lost Ark over there in Korea. There are some of it, but the popularity of them obviously isn't as strong as it is now with Fortnite and Battle Royale games. Trends tend to move on, and different things are brought in by different companies and creators. So ultimately, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But back to the term MMO, it feels like there's some idea or some kind of, almost like a dirty word. Like, oh, we're not an MMO. We're not an MMO. Because essentially, the MMOs used to mean like this persistent online world, this place you could invest, this place you could, have friends and these relationships. And I'm not saying it's wrong to have the games like Battle Royale and different things like that. These large-scale games that are able to attract a lot of people. But I think the mindset and the psychology behind all of it is very concerning. The psychology behind the loot box, the psychology behind everything that we've sacrificed against the subscription model. Everything we sacrificed, all because we wanted to become what WoW was. And unfortunately, there was never a WoW killer. WoW ended up being its own killer. It's either crushed by its own weight or by Activision. I think the running thread in all of this is there's something wrong with Activision. I think there's something foundationally either corrupt or just twisted within that company. I don't know what it is. I could be projecting my love of games and my disdain for this. And having, at the end of the day, I'm just really happy to see that Bungie and Destiny are not attached to them anymore. And I'm really sad to see that WoW is still attached to them. That's why I'm also really glad that 14 has nothing to do with Activision at this time, even though Square Enix and Activision Blizzard do have a relationship regarding translations of their games over in Japan and in that area of the world. Ultimately, I do worry about the future of MMOs. I think they're really an important game. As somebody who's a fan of them, I hope to see that they don't return to this like incredibly small niche where that's all they end up being. But they are also a victim of their own success, because as players, we tend to invest in these games for 10, 15, and 20 years at a time. It takes a lot of effort to get us to leave our home base. And so from a company's perspective, that's a lot of risk, because you're not going to necessarily pull in those players. And that's why I think Destiny is positioning itself very uniquely in the space. As long as they don't screw it up. They have a unique opportunity. An action MMO that's a first-person shooter, they've got the gameplay down. If they can get the business model down, if they can kind of really nail out the content cycle, they could be a real big force to be reckoned with. I'd actually expect to see something that, you know, there's rumors right now that Diablo 4 might try to compete against Destiny as that kind of shooter built into the into the framework of Overwatch's engine. I don't know how Diablo 4 players would feel about that. As a Diablo fan, it could be interesting. Like at the end of the day, I could be willing to give it a shot, but that's where I think a lot of people give Activision a lot of room, a lot of grace, because we do love their franchises that they own so very much, as opposed to like a company like EA, who, like, I don't have any franchises that I really I care about EA, so go screw those guys. Oh, but Activision, you're doing worse things than EA. Well, you suck, but, oh, you got Diablo. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. Chris and I are going to be out at BlizzCon this year. And who knows if they announce Diablo 4, or if they announce some more stupid mobile games that I'm not going to give any crap in the world about. Guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I think MMO actually has become a bad word. I think it's become this kind of label that people kind of put on to kind of discount it. I think there was a huge land rush, and people who didn't know what they were doing ended up losing lots of money, and thus they got burned. I think obviously a lot of the momentum is over in Battle Royale. I think there's a lot of money to be made there. I fault nobody for making money in this business. Ultimately, it's a business, but you have to have that balance between business and entertainment. I'm rooting for Bungie. I hope that they don't make any more mistakes. Right now, they can point to, Activision and say, all that stupid stuff we had to do. Yeah, that was those guys. And hopefully we're going to see a better Destiny, a better Bungie, a stronger Final Fantasy, a stronger Square Enix. I think if anything else right now, the news will hopefully point that, like, with the right investment, with the right plan, and with the right level and the right leadership and passion in the development team, that's where it's at. Destiny is going to succeed if the people behind it are passionate about it and they love what they do. It's not easy work. Final Fantasy is the same way. They do so much awesome work with the investment in time, and you see with the care that the developers bring to the game itself. It's truly magical. And that's where I'm going to leave this right now. It's going to be an ongoing question. When did MMOs become a dirty word? I think they became a dirty word around the time that Destiny came out, because obviously either Activision didn't want them competing with World of Warcraft in some way, or Activision just was burned, or they were fearful of it. We saw them cancel Titan. There's so much out there. I mean, this could be a conversation for days. And so beyond that, what do you guys think? When did MMOs go and became kind of like a little bit of where people kind of want to disassociate them with it? Or do you see that at all? Like, obviously I'm playing and enjoying an MMO right now. But I'm curious about your thoughts. Sound off in the comments below. I'm really curious as to your thoughts about the state of MMOs, about the state of Destiny, about 14. Do we want more MMOs in our world, or like, are we all just kind of waiting for the next big hit to come along and change up the game altogether? Anyway, I'm curious. Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Look forward to hearing from you. For Work to Game, my name's Brian. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you have a phenomenal day, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Whoa, you guys are the best. Jorge, Kyle, Philip, 31 Edwards, Rock Druid, Corey Longwith, Aaron, Axis, Hambone, Lady Wild Plays, CN Navs, this is going too fast, Christopher, Phil, Shun, Dragons, Soul, Keen, Knights, Assassin, Carlos, Sherry, Robert, Leyland, Davon, Tim, Jojo World, Terrace, Sora, Scrub Lord, Trevor, Mill, Almond, 70s, Kimber, Tyler, oh my god, I'm so sorry, Cody, Legend, Carlos, Endless, Jonathan, Jade, Sai, Derek, Brandon, Aaron, Riku, Daryl, Chemistro, Lauren, The Wolf, the Gar, Kelly, Anthony, Solid, John, Huskray, oh my god, everybody, Dark Later, Christopher, Vestments, John, Nopi, Brian, Tom, Dylan, Silent, whew, I missed your names. I'm sorry. I love you all. Oh my gosh, that was tough.